HR department do it for you. Yeah.
Exactly.
What is what is another content creator that you would love to have on your stream that you haven't already had?
That's a good one. I pretty much everyone that I've reached out to about it has said yes, with a few notable exceptions, like the huge names with over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube or whatever. And that's just because they're like, the life of a content creator is insanely busy. You need to plan 6 months ahead of time for like an interview like this. Like, we've been talking about this for what? 3 months or something, and now it's happening. It's very much that feeling of making sure to not overbook yourself. You need to plan things out much further ahead of time to make sure you still have time for other things that aren't TTRPGs, because it will eat your life. But if I had to give a name, I think I would probably go with Sly Flourish, Mike Shea, the Lazy DM. He is a machine in this space. He knows so much about marketing your TTRPGs and creating that audience that we were talking about. And he's been doing this for over a decade now. And I would love an opportunity to pick his brain about the work he does in this space. I've heard him on podcasts and stuff. I would love to actually work with him on something. That would be a dream.
Yeah, I've seen him in some Discord channels that I've been in, and in some other content. And yeah, he's a nonstop machine from what he does.
Just constantly doing stuff.
Which, to go to your point too, like, to be a content creator, or even to get into that hump of, or over that hump into full time, you're grinding nonstop. Everything you're doing is content to some degree, and that's why I was curious about shorts on YouTube. Is that something that you are thinking about doing to market you know Sagas, since that's how that algorithm, out of all the social medias, YouTube is fairly consistent for now, and shorts are kind of what they're pushing. Is that something you would go into?
I am considering it. The problem with shorts on YouTube is that they don't, by themselves at least, they don't translate into income, like, at all. You need 1 million shorts views or something before you can get monetized that way. It's insane. So like YouTube shorts and TikTok-esque content is something I'm considering to help promote the game, but it's not something I would ever dive into personally. And I had actually recently had a conversation with one of my friends in the space, Alex from Constructed Chaos on YouTube. He's been alongside me my whole content creation journey, and he is taking that dive into changing his actual play streamed D&D content into shorts. And he's seen a lot of success from it. It's just not turning into money. So if I can fix that aspect of it and find a way for shorts to turn into, people actually downloading a copy of Sagas, then I think that would be something I would put more time into.
Yeah, I just looked it up. You have to have 10 million views in shorts.
Oh my
god. So like, theoretically you could have 1 or 2 or 10 shorts that get you there if somehow they go super viral. But for a majority of content creators, getting 10 million shorts views, and the average, if you just like put one up, or at least for my channel, like when you put one up, it's like maybe 200, and then if you're lucky, you break 1,000. So you're looking at a lot of shorts to make.
Yeah, and even if you do get monetized through shorts, the ad revenue across YouTube is already not enough to be a main source of income, like, ever. everyone, all the popular YouTubers. I know Ginny D just did a video on how much of her income is what makes up most of it, and YouTube ad revenue was like
Yeah.
a sliver on her pie chart. So and shorts do even less through ad revenue. So like I said, you need to, yes, they're fun. Yes, it's good content to watch, but YouTube and apparently the ad revenue on TikTok is also terrible. At least that's what I've been told by some of the bigger creators on there. So if you do that, you need to be able to do something else as well. You can't just do that kind of content. And one of these days, I'm going to see if I can translate YouTube Shorts into something else.
Yeah, I think that is the other aspect of content creation that people who are watching just passively or overlook that content creators have to do, is because platforms change. It's like, how do you then respond? Because that was the biggest gap, where it's like, from when you stopped doing YouTube and then you got all your stuff ready, that's when YouTube really pushed shorts during that time. And then now it's just
and that wasn't something I was familiar with, and that's another reason that my fell off very sharply. Like, I was getting once I realized that I wasn't doing I didn't like video editing, that YouTube was no longer pushing the kind of content that I was working on. Those two things alone were enough to say, okay, I need to switch gears and figure out another thing in this space that I can do that is fun. And Sagas has absolutely nailed that target.
Yeah, that's where I think what you're doing is great, and I'm excited to see the next iteration of it as you get towards kind of that Kickstarter goal.
Thanks, me too.
Because that's why I like to do these interviews. Is it would be great to talk to a crit roll thing, but at the same point, it's like they're nowhere near what I'm doing, so it really wouldn't translate well into a conversation. It's like, oh, I like your show.
End of talk. Thanks for coming.
How'd you get there? Oh, you had a company that helped you get there. Okay, cool. I like your show. Yeah,
that's nice.
Because I also like seeking out, or people referencing to me, content that is like indie done and indie creators, because there's so much creativity that just gets overlooked because people are like, but that's not what everyone else is watching.
Yeah, there's so much tiny stuff out there that deserves 10 times or 100 times the audience that it's getting.
Yeah, what are some creators that you like?
There are some things that most of it is stuff that I like look at and just don't have the time to dive into, because I'm trying to do my own thing. But a couple ones I can name, we already mentioned Triangle Agency. I am super into the idea, like the concept behind that game. I just don't have time to run it or play in one. Another one would be Coyote and Crow. Like, literally won some well-deserved awards. Just the concept of a uncolonized America in a sci-fi futuristic setting and Native American culture. If there was one way that I could learn about that, I would want to read through the Coyote and Crow like core rulebook and play in one of those games. I think that would be super fun.
Yeah, that's another one people are, or at least a sibling of mine is like, you should contact them because I really like their tabletop book. I'm like, well, I got to read it first, because it's another one that is
it's that book is
and
a thick
it's
boy.
one of the few. I don't know of many other tabletop books that have successfully done like a decolonized take. I know that there's a couple on Kickstarter.
It is a minefield to navigate socially and politically. It's not something I would ever want to try to take on myself, but I'm glad someone did, and I'm glad they did it well.
Because there's Yeah.
But you did ask about
yeah.
other games that aren't big. Those two have made it. Like most people in this space know what Triangle Agency and
If not,
Coyote
they
and
will
Crow
soon.
are.
Yeah.
Yes, they will. I recently discovered, and I don't remember where I found it, but there is a 2-player RPG called Godling that I think is free, and I wish I remembered where it was. It is by Skylar K. Swift, and it uses a deck of cards, and it tells a story. You and the other player tell a story about a mortal raising an infant deity. And last night we had our power went out, and so I just pulled up this PDF on the laptop, and my fiance and I played through it twice, and it was so much fun just to like make up this story together about it was a story about parenting, about mortality, about what it means to have power. And I think that the themes and questions that they have for that are amazing. I want to say that Godling is still free. I know I got this copy for free
name your own.
from the creators like Ko-Fi
Yeah, they
or
have
something.
it on itch, and it's a name your own price. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is another one of those pay what you want kind of things. So I'm definitely, because I had so much fun doing this last night, one of my to-do lists today is to go on there and name a price that is not zero. I know a lot of people don't do that. I know there's a lot of when you put something out as pay what you want or name your own price, people are going to assume it's free. That's what it is. This is a donation system, not something you're selling. So I want to see what I can do there, because this was amazing. I think we might play it on stream once Sagas dies down a little bit, because it was so much fun.
I think that's probably one of the last questions I had, which is you mentioned you wanted to have Sagas eventually as like a pay what you want, correct? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is your philosophy behind that? Because I've done my own. Everything I make and I put out on DM's Guild is like a pay what you want, because I'm like, pay what you want. I'm doing it for fun. I have a day job, but for this project, because it is bigger in scale, why do you want to keep it as a pay what you want?
One biggest reason that I'm keeping it pay what you want is because I said very early on that it would be pay what you want, and I'm not someone to go back on my word. So I said early on, pay what you want. It's going to be pay what you want, even in this final iteration. Since then, I've been studying ways to make it more monetizable, and I hate to describe it this way, but microtransactions are very successful, and it's microtransaction is a term that I've only ever heard used with video games, where you go in and you can buy like cool skins and for your character, or DLC for the game itself. But games like Fortnite, totally free. You can just download that. Apex Legends, entirely 100% playable by anyone with the necessary system. The way that those companies make money through those games is through those microtransactions, and that's what is going to happen with Sagas. Like, even though the core rulebook is going to be free, the GM's guide, the other future supplements like adventures and settings, those are going to be like $1 or $2 probably.
That
I still want it to be very, very accessible.
Well, that's what I feel like the nature of where tabletop might be going is the rules are free, but then if you want something like a written story by a content creator, that's where that supplement will then have that microtransaction and or like price tag on it. It's like, okay, here are the rules, but you want my specific fantasy space opera occult whatever thing, here you go. It's $2 $3 or whatever.
Here's the SRD, the system reference document. These are the rules that you can use to play the game, and nothing else.
And I think that that's also been for a long time what tabletop has been. Just people only know how to reference the material through books that they've been buying at the store. A lot of the rules have been out there, how to play D&D, how to play all these other things for years, but because people only know, like, oh, I go to the store and I buy the books, you have them, I have them, that it has to be this like, oh, I have to set a $50 price tag for a 200-page book that has to have this art. It's like, no, you can make all the rules for free and then write your supplements that you really want to do.
Yeah, and that's definitely where I think Sagas is going to go. This is still only the plan that is currently in place. This might change, depending on what other research I do and what I can find out about how best to make this content accessible, fun, and still generate some income for me.
And that's I think the thing that people sometimes miss is that the income isn't necessarily to like get wealthy, it's to keep promoting the product.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be using this money that I get from this to buy food. I'm going to be reinvesting it into like advertising more of my stuff. Like this is going to be the income is going to be used to spin the wheels on these projects. It's not going to be a way to pay for rent.
I just bring it up because there a long time ago I had put a price tag on something that was free. I'm like, well, I kind of need to, if I'm going to keep hosting it, it has to have like at least a $2 price tag on it. And people are like, no, you had it as free. I'm like, well, I can't host it anymore, so now it's gone.
It's a real, like when you get pushed into that corner, it does not feel good.
So I'm like, okay, instead of it being free for everyone or dollars, it's now just gone. So but with that, I didn't have any other additional questions. Did you have any questions or other points that you really wanted to highlight about Sagas or your content creation journey?
I mean, I could talk to you till midnight about this. It's 2 in the afternoon right now. Like, I'm not even kidding. I love talking about all kinds of stuff. I will definitely plug something that has been extremely helpful to me as a content creator. So if you're a content creator listening to this, go check out the Rising Tide Discord channel. It is a place that is entirely filled with other TTRPG content creators, from artists to layout designers to game designers to YouTubers to Twitch streamers to map makers. Everything in between that has to do with this kind of content creation has one or probably many different people on that server that put stuff together. One of the things that has been most helpful for me that they've provided is their weekly goals meeting, where a couple people just hang out for an hour or so and say what they got done this week in their TTRPG content creation, what they plan to do for next week, and how they plan to keep themselves accountable to those goals. Since doing that, I don't know if I'll show you. This is I do notes now.
That are in the waistband.
And for those listening and not watching, this is a trash can completely filled with crumpled up like post-it notes. This is all just tasks that I've gotten done, and the cathartic feeling of ripping off one of those post-its and crumpling it up when you finish something is amazing. And I will not do any other kind of productivity stuff just because of how good this feels. So that Rising Tide Goals meeting was where I got the idea, and I've been sharing it in there constantly, and other people have been starting to try it, and they're like, this is awesome, so let's do it. Rising Tide has a bunch of other stuff as well. They've got like a podcast with like high level creators, like people that worked on D&D stuff. They had an interview with Sly Flourish, and it's just a fantastic place for TTRPG content creation. So that's my plug.
Definitely, that is a good point of having a tangible way of keeping notes, whether it's a notebook or sticky notes or something, note cards that you post onto a spider web of conspiracy theory boards. Because I forget where I heard this from. It's probably a psych professor who was talking about the difference between typing your notes and keeping track of information and writing
them.
Like you're
I have a degree in psychology, and I remember them drilling that into me in college, and I'm like, no. And now I'm realizing,
the physical act of writing it, you're gonna remember it better. And then also, like you said, being able to pull that sticky note from wherever you're holding it, crumple it up, and throw it away. You're giving yourself that little kick of dopamine, being like, I completed a task instead of clicking a checkbox.
Or even if exactly, like clicking a button is not the same as doing something. And if it's a task that I thought was going to take 15 minutes and took 4 hours, I get to rip that one up into tiny little pieces and throw it away. It's such a cathartic
How do you
feeling.
stay motivated then?
That is a very general
question.
question.
It's very general because it's like, because I know for myself it comes in waves of I'm doing something I like to do, so I have plenty of motivation to do it, and there's other times where it's like I don't feel like doing it. But for the productive part of my brain's like, if you let it slip, you're just going to pile on more work. So you have to at least do that. Like if you're writing 100 words a day minimum, if you're editing 30 minutes of editing something to do it. So how do you stay motivated to keep doing sagas and content creation?
For one, like you said, it's fun. It's so much fun to do like all of these aspects. There are parts of it that aren't as fun, like figuring out how to license a game was not an interesting bit of research that I had to do. But I think the way that I keep myself motivated is that post-it note system. So I have my desk has this like shelf above it, and I hang the notes from that shelf, and I've only got 7 magnets up there. So whenever I have a new job, I need to either do that one that I just wrote down or one of the ones that's up there right now to make more room for that one. That's one way that I keep myself on top of the tasks that need to get done. As far as motivation itself, having 7 options of like things that need to get done when you sit down to do something is nice. Like you don't have to, like there's only one thing, like you need to edit videos now, or this is the moment that you have to prepare that overlay for the stream, or you need to work on promotions, or this is game design time. I don't do that. I just sit down, look at my to-do list, and pick something that I feel like doing in the moment. And that's made everything easier to get done, I think.
It kind of reminds me of when I used to work in a kitchen, the little ticket holder that all kitchens have.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, we have 30 tickets. 10 of them are burgers. Go make some burgers. It's like if you see that your list is growing of making shorts or editing, you should probably do some editing. You can pick not.
Yeah, exactly. It's very clear of what needs to get done now. And even if you don't want to do those things, you can still just like pick the other options. And that's part of why I started to realize I don't like editing, is all the editing jobs started piling up, and I'm like, every time I sat down, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. And that's why I started moving away from edited video in YouTube content and towards live streams, which have been a ton more fun.
Well, that's
for me.
the beauty of kind of Twitch taking off, is that YouTube had to do a response to it and offer a live stream format for everyone, which then means we can do non-edited content easier and stay on track. Which, how is playing in a live stream different, or have you noticed anything change from live streaming to an edited format?
It takes much less time, first of all. Like, it takes more than an hour to edit an hour-long video. It only takes an hour to stream for an hour. So it is almost one-to-one. I mean, there is some stuff. You need to do the overlay, you need to do the promotions for it, let people know on your socials when you go live. But that doesn't take all that long, especially in comparison to making sure like you cut out all the coughs and you put in the shots that you want to in the places that you want to. So live streaming is a lower quality, I'll admit, but it is just more fun to create.
When it comes to the actual play, do you find any habits helpful in live stream tabletop play?
Helpful habits for live streaming. Having a set list of things you need to do immediately before you go live, or at some point before you go live, has been very helpful. For example, don't be going live if you haven't gone over safety tools yet. Is to make sure that you don't cross over into something, you don't cross anybody's red lines. Like if someone, because most of them are pretty dark, if someone recently lost a pet, don't talk about violence to animals. That should be clarified before you press the go live button. So really it's not so much the stuff that you do on stream that I find habits have been helpful, because when I'm on stream I just go. I have a very improvisational DMing style, so I just kind of like go with the flow, see where things are going. But safety tools being established beforehand is probably the number one most important habit to get into.
Yeah, I've also noticed on your streams there isn't a lot of side banter that happens, which is good. Because there are other streams where it depends on your style, I guess. If you want to make it feel like you're at someone's table, the first 10-15 minutes is just side banter or talking about people's days, and then the game starts. Because that's one of the biggest differences I see when watching like yours versus other people's streams is there isn't a lot of side chit chat happening.
I think that's mostly because the streams that I've run, there are very few exceptions, but pretty much every stream or every story that I run is with a completely new cast, and most of the time they don't know each other beforehand. So there isn't a friendship, camaraderie, there's no relationships between them where they will be talking about that stuff beforehand. Afterwards, we'll chat for an extra hour about the game, or about content creation, or about our other projects, or stuff like that. But I think that the fact that most of the time people to player at my table are strangers going into it, definitely has a effect on that. One of the things I hope to do in the next month or two is make a long-term campaign with people that know each other. So I will, I'll let you know how that goes, and there will probably be more banter about not the story that's happening, and that's going to be something I will either allow or disallow. I'm gonna have to feel it out in the moment, and figure out what the audience reaction is to it and all that.
That's
stuff.
where I was gonna say, with Sagas being cooperative and supporting combos and players working together, how is having 4 to 5 players who don't know each other, how's that impacted Sagas when you're doing your streams?
It has been very, very nice to see many different play styles come together at the same time and at the same table. I do my best to consolidate people's play styles beforehand, and that's how I sort them into groups, or one of the ways I sort them into their groups. But making sure that seeing that it's strangers coming together is, this is probably a bad analogy, but when I learned how to shuffle cards, I was in a cabin by a lake, and it was very, very humid out. So it was very, very difficult to learn how to shuffle those cards. And when I got back home from that vacation, I could just do it constantly, very easily. So having a little bit of struggle in the fact that people don't know each other has created muddied the waters a little bit in Saga's creation, and helped stress test the system so we can work out all of the kinks before a final product goes out.
Because that's the other aspect of, I think that I find really interesting, is that when watching the streams, you're stress testing Sagas like in front of your audience, in front of people right there. What has been something that maybe the players have done during those live streams that really surprised you or impressed you with what they did with Sagas?
The first thing that comes to mind for this question is in Pulse. The Pulse was the space science fantasy exploration one that we went through. And someone had made a build that just this big what was their name? Played by Juicy Garland. Forget the name of the character. It's been for some reason. But they dealt 5 damage in a single attack, which I didn't realize was possible with the rules. And then later in that same combat, they did it again. And I was like, okay, something here needs to be fixed. I feel like 5 damage is enough to wipe out most of the monsters in one shot. So I'm going to need to figure out a way to tone this back, resolve it, beef up the monsters, figure out a change in how health works or one of these abilities or something. So it was really, really fun in the moment. And so I think I'm going to make it so that exact situation can happen, but it won't immediately end the combat.
Yeah, when you said that would wipe out most, I'm like, yeah, it's 4 health, 4, 5, 10.
Yeah, because most attacks in this game will do 1 damage. So 5 is insane. That's like, it's the equivalent of about, let's see, as a level 1 character in D&D, you're doing like 10 damage would be a lot for a single hit at level 1.
You'd be lucky, yeah, to get 10.
So this would be the equivalent of doing 50 damage at level 1. Yeah, so I'm like, something here needs to change. I'm going to find a way to keep, because those moments were amazing. So I want to keep those moments, make that still possible, but make it less game breaking.
Was there, you would be able to, or is there any point during the live streams where there's something you thought would work but didn't in Sagas? Yeah.
Yes. Monster health. I am constantly, because I do this in D&D all the time, is I will play around with the monster's health to like their maximum hit points to make it a better story and a more intense combat. So I will, if someone lands like a super awesome crit, I will but the monster has like 15 health left. I'm going to say, okay, how do you want to do this? And I'll just say that the monster dies in that moment. Or if like someone makes the monster stub their toe and that was the last 2 hit points, it feels bad. It could be fun and funny, but I want to find a better way to control how long combat lasts in the game. And that'll probably be fixing and reorganizing how tough monsters are versus how much damage they do. And probably in the Game Master supplement that we're 100% going to do, even if Sagas is not successful, I still want to make that one last piece. There will be something in there about probably how I personally change maximum hit points on the fly. Because Sagas is not designed to be a dungeon crawl, where D&D, especially like older versions, is. So, and that's the most experience I have. So I'm going to have to start diving into other systems and see how they fix this problem.
There are elements of it. When I was reading through it, kind of reminded me a little bit of the Powered by the Apocalypse and then Monster of the Week elements of it, where they have their They're kind of like how much damage a creature can take, which also is relatively low because they also like to use only a couple, like 2 to 3 damage maybe.
Yeah, I don't want you to have to roll a die and then add 3 different numbers to it to figure out how much damage you're going to do.
That is definitely, I think, one of the combat over roleplay is one of those things that's definitely harder for people to conceptualize, and then also then to write game mechanics for, because a lot of people don't actually have combat experience. And then I'm not talking like military combat experience. Yeah, just like a general skirmish with somebody or fisticuffs.
Sure, I got punched in the face in high school like once or twice, but I've never actually been in a fight and had to make these decisions. I don't take martial arts classes.
And that's where reading various rules and talking to various people about the systems that they use, how widely different sometimes the approaches are for combat, which is unique because some of them are story driven, some of them are, we want to be as gritty and realistic as possible. So in order to grab someone's wrist to flip them, you have to do a percentile on a percentile, add some numbers, and there you go.
Yeah, I've seen a couple systems like that are they throw in all the rules to make sure it's as realistic as possible, and that is absolutely not what Sagas is trying to do. Sagas is trying to let you play in the TV show that you love. You know, so you should be able to do the Kamehameha. And, you know, you're not gonna, the only place that exists is in the show. So that is the inspiration that we're drawing from for making sure what the rules can do.
But what systems do you draw for inspiration for different aspects of Sagas? Because I know it's supposed to be more agnostic of a system, but
but I mean, I can't create it in a vacuum. That would be recreating Beck-Me or the first editions of D&D, and I don't want to do that. It was almost impossible to avoid drawing inspiration from 5th edition D&D because that was the only one I played for 8 years. So there are going to be aspects in that, like I call individuals in combat, I call them creatures, just like D&D does. It's hard to use, hard to avoid D&D-esque terms. The turn order, you know, of how you go through combat, that is also something that happens in D&D, and 100% I took from there. Another system that I drew a lot of inspiration from was Easy D6 by Runehammer Games. And that one I played a few very successful charity streams with. And it's really cool, very simple as the name suggests. There's no leveling system. Effort was inspired by that game's karma system. And I've heard since then that there's a lot of games that are like it. Those are the two that initially inspired it, and since then, through designing it, I've read through the SRDs for many other games, especially Universal ones. There's one called Shift that's coming out by I forgot who's designing it, but it also uses no D20s. They use 12, 10, 8, 6, and 4. And it is a roll under system. And so I made sure to go through that one and make sure that I wasn't drawing inspiration from it, actually, to make sure that because this is being done by an actual game studio, not just me working on the rules, pretty much. So I made sure that Sagas is significantly different enough to merit its own creation. But I've still drawn inspiration from that sort of game. Any Universal, like Fate, Powered by the Apocalypse, I haven't read through GURPS, and I
Yeah.
don't plan to.
It's an investment. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that might take a while.
So when, because I think about this a lot too, when making my own content, do you ever have to like stop yourself and be like, oh, I'm just remaking this element of this other system I know?
Yeah. There's a lot of powers that that started out just as like copies of D&D spells. And I'm like, okay, this needs to be changed in flavor or in wording or in mechanics. I still want to do the same thing, but I don't want minor teleport to be a copy paste of Misty Step, you know? So yes, that has happened a few times. Fortunately, not very often. Most of the actual inspiration I'm drawing from is from characters in shows doing things instead of like rules in other games. So like I'm rewatching My Hero Academia right now. And I'm looking at, okay, what if someone was invisible forever? Could we put a rule in there for that? What if someone could make explosions with their palms? What would that power look like inside this system? Could it be built? And that's been honestly one of the most fun things to do, is to create new stuff from other like shows and established IPs. We can't put that out. We can't sell it. We can't do stuff like that with it. So it will come out in some form or another and do some sort of, you know, free Pokemon supplement or free monsters in your pocket supplement.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Just like off-brand, very obviously this IP, but this is just how we would play a Pokemon game in Sagas. These are the rules we would use. Or these are not the rules, the abilities we would use.
With that, my dog is telling me she needs to go. So I guess I do too, because she's apparently my boss. But so with that, I think that's a good spot to also end. But how can people find you or reach you if they want to check out Sagas? Because I'm also going to put this in the description of the video.
Awesome. Well, there are so many social medias that I've started recently, so let's see if I can remember them all. First off, there is, if you want to find all of my stuff in one place, you can check out my Linktree. That's linktr.ee/Okayest DM, all in one word. That will have all of my other socials, all of the projects that I've worked on other people's channels, just all the content that I've created, which is stacking up very fast. YouTube, Okayest DM, Twitter, Okayest__DM, Instagram and Threads is Okayest__DM, and I think that's it. I can send you the full list of where people can find me. But if the most dedicated place to be able to find my stuff will be Linktree.
I was gonna put your Linktree and your top. Thank you for watching. If you want to check out more from the Okayest DM, then check out the links below. If you want me to check out and interview your favorite content creator, then leave a comment below. And remember to be kind and roll well.